Shalom, Israel. Brother Reggie Jr. here. So today I'm going to be doing Genesis chapter 1, and this is going to officially be the first chapter of the series of the book of Genesis that I'm going to do. And this is going to be a long series, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. It's over 50 chapters, but we'll eventually get to it all. I just ask that you hang in there with me and be patient. Now, Genesis chapter 1 is about the creation. Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all. There's a lot of things that are left out, a lot of little nuggets of how God created the heaven and how he created the earth, like exactly how he did it. That is scattered throughout the rest of the Bible. Not all of it is told in Genesis 1. You have to go and find the rest of those scriptures pertaining to the creation. And in order for me to really focus in on the details of like how the heaven and the earth was made and different stuff like that, I would literally have to make like 1 to 2 separate videos to cover that, because it's just too much for what I'm trying to do today. Because my plan right now is to only deal with the core scriptures in Genesis chapter 1, and then I'm going to start Genesis chapter 2 in the next video. So if you guys request that I make 1 to 2 part video about the in-depth creation, I'll do it. But if not, we're going to keep it moving, guys. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Genesis chapter 2 and so on. So let's go ahead, guys, and get into this. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. And it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So it says, in the beginning, God. So we have to figure out what God created the heaven and the earth, because as we know, there are 2 gods in the Godhead, but we have to figure out which one did the creating that we're seeing in Genesis 1 and 1. Was it God the Father or was it God the Son? Well, let's get that answer. Let's go to John chapter 1, if you will. Give me a chance to flip there. John chapter 1, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 3, and then I'm going to read verse 14. And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now I'm going to cut in here real quick. So it says in the beginning. This is the beginning it's talking about right here. Genesis 1 and 1. In that beginning, it said was the Word. Okay, and what was that word? It says that word was God. It says, and the word was with God, and the word was God. Verse 2, and it says, the same was in the beginning. So this same word was in this beginning. It was in Genesis. This same word was in Genesis 1 and 1. And it says, the same was in the beginning with God. And it says, all things were made by him. So this word that was in the beginning with God made all things. And it says, and without him, without this word that was God in the beginning in Genesis, it says without him was not anything that was made. It was not anything made that was made. Now let's skip down to verse 14. And it says, and the word, that same word that was God, that was in the beginning. Let's see what it says. And the word was made flesh. Oh, okay. And dwelt among us. Okay. And we beheld his glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So we figure out, brothers and sisters, we figure out that this word that was in the beginning, we found out that this word was God, and we found out that this God was God the Son. This God is Jesus the Christ. So it said, so the way it should be read in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1 is, in the beginning, Jesus created the heaven and the earth. That's the way it should be read. But before I move on to verse 2 back in Genesis, let's go to Hebrews chapter 7. And I'm going to read verse 3. So Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 3. Give me just a minute, guys, to get there. Hebrews 7 and 3, and it says, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days. Let me read that again. Having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, talking about Jesus, abideth a priest continually. So if you go back to Genesis 1:1, when it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, we know this isn't talking about God's beginning, because we just read in Hebrews 7:3, God does not have a beginning. When he's talking about the beginning, he's talking about the beginning of mankind, the beginning of all things, not his beginning, but the beginning of all things that we know, whether it's visible, whether it be visible or invisible. That was the beginning for those things right here, because God, he doesn't have a father, he doesn't have a mother. Okay, we don't know how he came to be God. We don't know those answers. Maybe it'll be revealed to us when we make it in the kingdom, but we don't know. We just have to stick with what we can read. Now, verse 2, and it says, and the earth was without form, and it says, and it was void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. So it's saying that the earth, it was without shape, and it was void, meaning it was empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And whenever it talks about the deep, it's talking about the oceans. And then it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Let's go real quick to Isaiah chapter 40 and 12. Isaiah 40 and 12. I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot why I put this in here, but it don't matter. We're going to read this anyway. Isaiah 40 and 12, and it says, who have measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and meted out heaven with the span, and comprehended the dust of the earth in measure, and weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in the balance. So I completely forgot why I put that in there. But it lets you know, brothers and sisters, it lets you know that everything that the Lord created was calculated. It was all methodical. But the way that this Babylonian science has us trained, it makes you think that the heaven, earth, and all of these different things, I mean, even us, they make you think that it was all just one big giant accident. And you know why they did that? To confuse the children of Israel. That's why they did it. They did it to confuse us and to hide the hand of God. But you can never hide the hand of God. All you got to do is look around and you know that there's a God. You can't hide the things that he created. But let's continue, guys. Let's get more into this. Verse 3. And it says, so back to Genesis. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy. I'm just being honest. There's a lot of controversy surrounding verse 3. A lot of people say that this light was the sun. He just didn't get to it to day 4. But in my opinion, this is just what I believe based off of what I could see. And I got scriptures to back up what I believe. The sun and the moon and the stars, because you can't just say the sun. That doesn't make any sense. You have to include the moon and the stars. That was not created to verse 4. Genesis 1 makes that very clear. Those things, did I say verse 4? Those things were created until day 4, excuse me. But clearly here, there was light that was created here on the first day. And I believe this light that we're looking at was some sort. We know it was created, obviously. And I'm going to give you guys what I think. This light here is this is the light that the sun generates. Now, I'm not saying that the sun was created, but what I'm telling you is the sun is nothing more than a lamp, okay? If you could just go around your house And then just look at a light fixture. Just look at a light bulb or grab a flashlight. That's the sun. The sun and the moon and the stars, those are what we call light bearers. And you're going to see what I mean by that. The light and the sun, those are two separate entities. And you're going to see what I mean. The light was created. So you got the sun, right? Inside of this sun, you have light, because all the sun is doing is serving as a lamp. And I got some scriptures to show you guys what I mean by that. Actually, hold up. Let me go get my phone, because there might be some scriptures that I want to show you that I didn't already put in my Bible. All right, I'm back, y'all. So, yeah, back to the whole light thing in verse 4. Because I'm just trying to, I don't want to just scoot past this. I want to make sure this is making sense. So what I'm trying to say is the sun, the moon, and the stars, these are simply lamps, okay? But the light that comes from it is totally separate from the sun, the moon, and the stars. That light that they shine, that is something altogether different. That light is what was created in verse 4. That is the best way that I can put it. But let me go real quick to Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19, and I'm going to read verse 26, because this is something very important that we need to understand. It says, "But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." So I know a lot of you guys are saying, you thinking in your mind like, how can light be created without the sun or the moon? Hey, that is above my pay grade, and that is above your pay grade. You just need to know that the Lord created the essence. That's what I'm trying to say. The Lord created the essence of light. He didn't need the sun, the moon, and stars to do that, but he created the very essence of light. How he did that, I have no idea. That is above my pay grade, but just know that it happened. But I'm going to show you guys that the sun, the light, and the sun, moon, and the stars, those two are two separate entities. One is the actual essence, and the other one is the lamp that the essence comes through. So let's keep reading in Genesis. Where was I? Verse 4. Okay. And it says, "And God saw the light." So he saw the essence of the light that he created, that it was good. And he divided this light from the darkness. So the essence of this light, he divided it from the darkness. Okay. And it was from this light and the darkness that he would begin, that it was from the essence of this light that he would begin the cycle between day and night. So yes, day and night begun without the need of a sun, moon, and the stars at that point in time. But you're going to see why later the Lord had the sun, moon, and the stars created, and for what reason. Let's now go to Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 7. Isaiah 45 and verse 7. This is meant to be taken metaphorically and literally. Okay, so Isaiah 45 and verse 7 is meant to be taken metaphorically and literally. And this is what God says. "I form the light and create darkness." And remember, guys, how does God create darkness? By taking away the light. Darkness is the effect of the light being withdrawn. Simply, darkness is the absence of light. That's the best way that I can put it for you. But let me keep reading. God says, "I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things." So the Lord says he forms the light and he creates the darkness. Remember what he did to Egypt? It was darkness all in the land. It was so dark it can be felt. Think about that darkness that could be felt. What did the Lord do? He took the light away, because darkness is the absence of light. But let's go back to Genesis, guys, and let's keep reading. Just bear with me. This is my first time really teaching Genesis chapter 1. So there may be some things that I've probably forgotten to include, but I can include those things if you guys request maybe a 1 to 2 part video on creation and how the Lord did it in detail. But let's keep going. Verse 5. It's my favorite verse. I like this verse right here. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now, before I comment on that, let me look at something real quick. All right. Yeah. Okay. I looked at it. I'm good now. So whenever the Bible refers to day, day simply means light. I got to get this through your head. Day simply means light. Or when you say light, you could just say day. Like, I know sometimes I say, oh, it's light outside. What am I saying? Oh, it's day outside. Or sometimes I just simply say, oh, it's day. Or what do we refer to it here in America? We say what? Daylight. Daylight. That's where they get it from right here. Genesis chapter 1 and 5. Daylight. And then the darkness is called night. So whenever in the Bible, when you see it says night, it means darkness. Or when you see darkness, you could just simply say night. They're interchangeable. They mean exactly the same thing. Now, this day is not the sun. All right, guys, get this through your head. I got to get this through your head. The day, which means light, or the light that means day, this does not mean the sun. Sun ain't nowhere in the picture. The sun has absolutely nothing to do with the day or the daylight. We are simply dealing right now with the essence of the light. But let me go ahead and finish up verse 5, because I stopped at night. And it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Okay, so we see from that the day and night cycle, it started. Now, I want to show you how the light and the sun are two separate entities, because the sun is simply a light bearer. It's nothing more than a lamp. It's nothing more than a light bulb that's in your house. The sun is a bulb. It's not the light. It's just a bulb that bears the essence of the light. Okay, but let me just show you that the light and the sun is two separate entities. Let's go to Psalms chapter 74. Psalms chapter 74. Bear with me, y'all. I'm going to be doing a lot of flipping back and forth. So, just keep your spot in Genesis chapter 1. Not that you need to, because Genesis chapter 1 is the first book of the Bible. So you don't have to really worry about too much. So Psalm 74 and 16. And it says, the day is thine. Right, hold on now. Let me just stop right there. It says, the day, meaning the light. Remember I told you day and light is interchangeable. You can say either or and it means the exact same thing. The sun has nothing to do with this. The day or the light is thine. The night also is thine. And remember, with this night, the moon also is nowhere in sight. Think about that. The day and night cycle has started, but the sun, as well as the moon, as well as the stars, guys, in day one, it ain't nowhere in sight, but yet the cycle started. So when we get to day 4, we're going to read some interesting stuff. But back to verse 16, it says, the day is thine, and the night or the darkness also is thine. Now look at this part, guys. Thou, God, hast prepared the light. Think about that. Thou hast prepared the light or the day. It's interchangeable. Thou hast prepared, let's just say the day. Thou hast prepared the day and the sun. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Brothers and sisters, that is very clear that the light and the sun, as well as the moon, as well as the stars, they are separate entities from one another. What you're looking at with the sun, moon, and the stars, and I know I'm sounding like a parrot, but I have to get this through your head. They are two separate entities. One is the essence, and the other one is the bearer or the bulb. That's it. But I just showed you guys in Psalm 74 and 16, the light and the sun, they are two separate things. Two separate things. All right, so now, guys, let's go ahead and continue. Genesis 1 and verse 6. Now we're finna get into some good stuff here. It says, and God said, God the Son, he said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Now, brothers and sisters, this firmament that we are reading about, the firmament isn't this. You see my hands? That is not the firmament. What I'm doing now, that is not the firmament. No, the firmament, as we gonna see, because I'm about to give y'all some precepts, the firmament is like this. That's the firmament. You hear that? The firmament is tangible. The firmament is something that can be felt. We could feel it. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But the firmament is tangible. It's solid. And you're going to see what I mean. And if I can, guys, I'm going to try to show you guys some pictures just to give you guys some visual imagery of what I mean. So let's go see. I'm going to show you with scriptures that the firmament is solid. Let's go to Job chapter 38 and verse 18. Job chapter 38 and verse 18. Give me just a moment, guys. Job 38 and 18. And it says, I think I messed it up. Job 37 and 18. And it says, hast thou with him, talking to Job, hast thou with him, meaning God, spread out the sky? Oh, well, what are you talking about? Which is strong and as a molten looking glass. And this sky here in verse 18 is talking about the firmament. So we get here in Job, we get a description to this firmament. I got another scripture for you guys, don't worry. We see here that this firmament is described as being strong. Like a strong man. A strong man is what? He's solid. He built. It says he's strong. And then it says as a molten looking glass. So it tells you how the firmament looks. It's telling you this firmament, this sky is strong, it's solid. And it looks almost like, it's like a molten looking glass. And I'm going to put this picture on the screen for you guys so you can see what it looks like. See that? That is what it means by as a molten looking glass. So that is the description we are given concerning the firmament. Now, let's go ahead and go to another precept, Jeremiah chapter 51 and 15. Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 15. And it says, he have made the earth by his power. He have established the world by his wisdom, and have stretched out the heaven Remember, this heaven is the firmament, and we're going to see when I continue to read in Genesis 1. And have stretched out the heaven, or this firmament, by his understanding. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. And let me keep reading just for the sake of that precept. So Genesis 1:7, and it says, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, just as we read in Jeremiah 51:15. So he called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. So this firmament, as you can see, was called heaven. And the description that we got from the precepts that I read is that this firmament is solid, and its appearance is like a molten looking glass. And there was something else. Yes, Jeremiah 51:15, it was explaining how the Lord, how he stretched out this firmament. Okay, he stretched it out. Okay, that's what gave us our sky. He created this firmament and he stretched it out. And what he did was what you're reading in verse 7, when it says, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above. So what he did basically was, in a way, I don't want to say gouge because that's a little too extreme. Let's just say the water, get the Bible out the way real quick. Let's just say the water, let's just say this is the beginning point right here. Let's say the water is about that high. Now, this the firmament right here. This is my phone. Of course, the firmament will be huge. The Lord, what he did was he divided the water. Put the firmament right there. And what he did, see, you got the water above the firmament, and then you got the water that's below this firmament right here. And so what he did was he stretched out this firmament, and it took the waters up. Now, as you see this firmament going up, God expanded it and stretching it out. All of that right there becomes this atmosphere that we could see. So he took all that water up. All that water up. So that blue, guys, that you're seeing in the sky, that is the waters above. That's literally what you're looking at. We were told some nonsense in science, like, oh, what you're looking at is some gas permeating in the air. That's why you see blue. I'm something dumb. No, the reason why you see a blue sky is because those are the waters above. When you just go outside right now, if it's daytime, and just look up. And if you see a blue sky, that's because you are looking at the waters above. Literally, you are looking at the waters above that the Lord brought up with that firmament. And look, the Lord is a natural God. He used something solid to hold it up, to hold up them waters and keep them waters up there. There's so much I just want to get into with you guys, but I have to stick with the core scriptures today. There's so many things I just can't bring out unless I make one or two separate videos specifically focusing on the details of creation. But you guys just need to know that the firmament is solid. It's something tangible. And its description is seen as being like molten looking glass. So let's go real quick, guys, to Ezekiel chapter 10. And I'm going to read verse 1. So Ezekiel chapter 10 in verse 1. And it says, and I'm going to let you know, this is another precept letting you guys know that this firmament, it really is solid. It's something tangible based off of the description that we're given here. Now, this is referring to a different firmament for a different purpose, but nevertheless, it's showing you that it is tangible. Ezekiel 10 and 1, and it says, then I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them as it were a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. And so what we're looking at here is we are looking at a vehicle, the Lord's vehicle. And above this vehicle, we're looking at what it's telling you. I ain't say this. The Bible's telling you it's a firmament. So what's over their head? It's a covering. It's a roof. So over this earth, if you just go outside, now you can't see it, but we have a roof over us. There's literally a roof over the earth, a covering over the earth. And that covering is covering us from the waters above. And of course, it's covering us from seeing God the Father and God the Son. But nevertheless, that firmament is not only solid, but it's a covering. Now, but yeah, let me look at that again in verse 1. It says, and the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over, it says, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them as it were a sapphire stone. Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to read. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But let's go to a few more precepts, guys, before I go to Genesis 1 and 8. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 22. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 22, and it says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. Oh man, I just want to deal with that, but I can't. And the grasshoppers thereof are as and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out. Now let's talk about God here. That stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, talking about this firmament, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So again, we're dealing with this firmament, and it describes it as how the Lord expanded it, how he took those waters above up by using this solid firmament. It tells you that the Lord stretched and he spread out this firmament, this solid object, whatever it looked like. I don't know what it looked like. I just know it's described as being solid. But he took it and he expanded it over the earth as like a covering. That's what I was just trying to get out of that scripture for you guys. I mean, this is a lot, man. This is stuff that a lot of us honestly have never really seen in the Bible before. These are things that we really just skipped over. You know, most people are scared to talk about stuff like this, but not me. I don't care. I don't care at all. Isaiah 44 and 24. And it says, thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things. And we found out through the precepts with Genesis 1 and 1 that it's God the Son that made all things. And it says, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, and spreadeth abroad the earth by myself. Man, I want to deal with that so bad, but I can't. I got to stick with the core scriptures. But again, we see where God the Son, this firmament, he stretched it out, stretched it abroad, stretched it out like a tent to dwell in as a covering over the earth. So as you guys can see so far, with just this little bit that I'm giving you, this creation was all methodical. It was all by design. But this Babylonian science, okay, it makes you believe that everything was an accident. Literally, they even tell us that we're an accident. What did they tell us? They said that we were like, bacteria or something weird like that. I can't remember. But when I was in school, they said humans were like bacteria or something like that. And through all the harsh weather changes when Earth was first being formed by colliding with some rocks, we somehow began to evolve, not into us, but we began to evolve into like monkeys or apes or something weird, they told us. And then from that, we started like morphing, and eventually we became human or something just weird. See how that doesn't even make sense? That's confusion, man. But the Bible tells us something totally different. The Bible tells us that creation was by design, not by accident. So now let's keep continuing to move in Genesis 1. Now let's read verse 8. And it says, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So I think I already read that. So let's go to verse 9. It says, and God said, let the waters, hold on, y'all. Let's go back to verse 8. I think I missed a precept. Ezekiel chapter 1. Ezekiel chapter 1. I think I went to Ezekiel 1 before, but I did a different verse. But this is Ezekiel chapter 1. And I'm going to read verses 22 through 26. And it says, here we go. More info on the firmament, thus proving that it in fact is solid. In that it does have a tangible shape. It does have a tangible form. And it says, and the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creature was as the color of the terrible crystal. Now, this firmament isn't the firmament of the earth, but nevertheless, we see that this same firmament that was used to create earth, we see this same firmament again being used as a covering for over the heads of these four living creatures. And it says, in the likeness of the firmament upon the head of the living creatures was as the color of the terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above. And under the firmament were the wings straight, the one toward the other. Every one had two, which covered on this side, and every one had two, which covered on that side in their bodies. And it says, and when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters. Let me just keep reading because I don't want that. Let me skip down to verse 26. And it says, and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne. Okay, so again, we're dealing with a vehicle here, but nevertheless, guys, you guys should see by now that the firmament is described as being something tangible. Okay, something that can be touched, just like I'm touching this table right now. The firmament can be touched in that same capacity. All right, so when you see NASA, let me just say this real quick. When you see NASA in these spaceships and stuff like that, these people are so obsessed for some reason with trying to get out of something. What is it that they're trying to get out of? Forget the moon. I don't want to hear none of that moon garbage. Okay. What is this obsession that they have to leave Earth, to leave something? What is that? That's because, brothers and sisters, they told y'all one thing. I'm talking to you Negroes right now. They told y'all one thing, but they know another thing. See, in order for me to deceive a person, I have to know the truth to deceive a person. In order to lie, I have to know the truth. And those are just the facts. And from what we're reading here, you can clearly see that NASA, science, that whole religion, you can clearly see that it's garbage, but you could tell they know the truth. Okay? These guys, they got spacesuits on and stuff. Why are they wearing spacesuits? Are they really spacesuits, or is it a form of scuba gear? Because they know if somehow, which they won't, that if somehow they break past that firmament, that they're going to reach the waters above. Do they have knowledge of that? Do they know these things? Because they read our book. They know all of this. See, you're going to be in unbelief. You ain't going to believe nothing I bring out today. And that's completely fine. Trust me, you're dealing with a person who do not care. You think Brother Reggie Sr. don't care. Trust me, you don't bother me at all by not believing the scriptures. But I'm just letting you know, our enemies, they know the truth. But see, they hide all of this stuff from you. But they know the truth. They've read this Bible. They know what's up there. You don't. They do. And to keep you asleep, they make all of these movies like Gravity and Interstellar. That's stuff to keep you asleep. Keep your mind on autopilot so you could never challenge their doctrine. All of those science pastors, because those scientists, they're pastors. That's the way I see them. They're messengers for Satan. Pastors. And they got their little science doctrine that they've infected everybody with. Because they are clearly teaching something totally different from what the Bible says. And I'm just being real with y'all right now. All right. But let me not get too far off, guys. Let's get back into this Genesis chapter 1 and verse 9. And it says, and God said, let the waters under the heaven, let the waters under the firmament, that solid firmament, that hard, solid firmament, let the waters under that be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So the Lord used the firmament. He took the waters up by stretching the firmament out. Okay, took the waters up above. Now the rest of this water that was left below, the Lord gathered all of this water. He gathered it together in one place. Okay, and that caused the dry land to appear. And then, like it says, it was so. Let me look real quick, guys, in Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 22, because I had that written down, but I don't know if that's something that I wanted to read, but I'm just going to see anyway. No, that's not that. I didn't want to read anything. That ain't nothing I wanted to read. It says, and let the dry land appear. So let's keep reading. Verse 10. And God called the dry land earth. So this dry land is called earth. So whenever you hear dry land, you could simply say earth. Or if you see the word earth, you could simply say dry land. It's interchangeable. It means those two words mean the same thing. And it says, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. Yeah, but science say ocean. No, God called them seas. Now they say oceans, but technically they're called seas. That's what God calls them. And it says, and God saw that it was good. You know what? Let me actually read Jeremiah 5 and 22. I think I know what I wanted out of that. It took me a little minute, but I actually had to read for me to know what I wanted out of that. So Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 22, and it says, fear ye not me, saith the Lord, and no Israel nor man fears the Lord, but they should. Will ye not tremble at my presence? And we will tremble. We tremble at the lightning, so you know we're going to tremble at his presence. Will ye not tremble at my presence, which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea by a perpetual decree, that it cannot pass? Now that's all I wanted. Well, let me just finish it out. And though the waves thereof toss themselves, yet they cannot prevail. Though they roar, yet can they not pass over. And I'm going to show you guys a quick clip on the video of the waves and stuff like that. But as you can see in verse 10 in Genesis 1 and 10, it says, and God gathered together the waters and he called them seas. So the Lord placed around the sea sand, and that sand serves as the bound for the sea. That is the line that they cannot cross. And you guys see it, those big, gigantic waves, especially at night, they just boom and they roar and they pound on top of each other, and it's destructive. It's chaos. But then right when they get ready to get to the edge of that sand, what do you see it do? It boom, boom, and then it slowly go a little bit up, and then it come right back. That, my friends, that is the hand of God. That has nothing to do with science. That, brothers and sisters, that is impossible. That is the hand of God. Only a God can do that. And I'm sorry, according to science, they say two big rocks collided and boom, and massive destructions and explosions happened, and it created all that. You telling me it created all that? All of this stuff we reading about, destruction created life. Does that even make sense right now? If I was to let off an atomic bomb on the city in which I live, do you think there would be some life created, or would it just be perpetual destruction until other men of different parts of the states decide to come and rejuvenate that area, throw away all the dead stuff and start, making things look new again? But, it's just, you have to put two and two together. At some point, you have to look at science. You have to look at everything that you were taught in school and say, man, that don't make no damn sense. Like, when you really just stop, just think about it. Go back to one of them old videos that you were shown in school and just think about it. That's all I want you. Just think about it and meditate on it and see, does what that video say, does that make any sense at all? Because it doesn't make any sense. And I'm just trying to provoke you guys just to do a little bit of thinking, because a lot of us, we don't do no thinking. We let people think for us. And that's dangerous, because whoever thinks for you controls you. And I let the Lord think for me, so you know who controls me. Now, back to Genesis, and I'm going to read verse 11. Now, it says, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. Now let's see how the Lord did this. Now this may seem like an oxymoron from what I'm about to read, but I'm just trying to show you guys something real quick. Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 7, because the Lord is a very natural God. And it says, for the earth which drinketh in the rain that come oft upon it, and bringeth forth by way of this rain, and bringeth forth herbs, meat for them by whom it is dressed, receiveth blessing from God. Now, what we just read is post-flood. You know that because we're talking about the rain. But you're going to learn next chapter that it didn't rain. Pre-Noah's flood, there was a mist that came from the ground and it watered the ground. And it was that mist right there that caused these herbs and the fruit trees to come up, because the Lord is still a very natural God. Now, to speak something and it just manifests, now, of course, that's unnatural. We know that, but I'm just saying the way he likes to do things, his process, he's a very natural God. This God likes to do things in a way to where it makes sense. He's a very symbolic, he's a very metaphorical God. So everything that the Lord does in Genesis 1, you have to pay attention, because he's very metaphorical and he's a very symbolical God. But we know that there was a mist pre-Noah's flood that came up and it watered the earth. And that's what caused the plants and the trees to grow. And we know post-flood, post-Noah's flood, there no longer was a mist that came up, but yet it rained. Okay, I just wanted to get that through y'all head. So let's continue reading Genesis 1 and 12. And it says, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. So real quick, guys, kind of off the subject of the firmament and the fruit trees and all of those things, as you guys can see, it was day 3, and yet no sign of the sun, moon, or the stars. All you had was the essence of light, and then you had the darkness. That's all you had. And that essence of light and the darkness, hey, that began the cycle of day and night. Without the aid of the sun, the moon, the star, God don't need none of that for that cycle to continue. But you're going to see what I mean, because we finna get to it right now. Verse 14. Now we're looking at day 4. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven. He didn't say let there be lights. He said let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Yeah, but if you look at verse 4, it says that God created the light and stuff, and he divided the light and the dark. Let's keep reading, because you're going to see what this verse 14 means. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them, this is important, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Now, hold on now before I get any deeper. It says, let there be lights in the firmament. So these lights that God is getting ready to create, it's in the firmament. So you got the firmament, the structure that God spread out like a tent. It's in the firmament. In being the prefix of inside. So these lights are in the firmament, meaning these lights are on the earth. Okay, if I were to go far enough up, the lights are inside of the earth. They're in the firmament. They're not outside where what I'm saying is these lights, they're not outside where the waters above are. They're inside. They're below the waters above. They're below the firmament, which took up the waters above. That's what I'm saying. But I thought I would just clear that up for you guys before I kept reading. Verse 15, and let's see what the Lord says about these lights. He says, and let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon what? The earth. And it was so. Now, let's look at God create these lights. Verse 16, and it says, and God made 2 great lights. Now, a lot of people, they like to say, yeah, in Genesis chapter 3, that light was the sun. Well, hold on. Now, you can't just say the sun. That's ridiculous. That's bias. Because the sun was not the only type of light. Sun, the moon, and the stars. So if you're going to try to say that for verse 3, you have to say sun, moon, stars. It can't just be the sun. It can't just be the moon, or it can't just be the stars. It has to be all 3, because they're all lights. I'm just trying to make a point. But let's look. It says, and God made 2 great lights. Okay, so these are 2 great lights. It says the greater light to rule the day. Okay. And the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So these 2 great lights, the greater light is the sun. The lesser light is the moon. And then he made the stars also. Now the sun and the moon, they are the exact same size. The only difference is the amount of light, the amount of the essence of light that they radiate. That's why it says the greater light and the lesser light. Okay, so there's a lot of essence of light in the sun, but there's less of the essence of the light in the moon. And it says he made the stars also. But that's what I was just trying to show you guys for that. Now, it was something else that I wanted to touch. Now, yeah, what was the purpose then if the cycle of day and night had already started without the aid of the sun, moon, and the stars, well, what was the purpose then for the Lord putting them on the earth? Well, number one, the Lord did it to help provide even more light upon the earth. That's what it was. It says in verse 16, the greater light, meaning the sun, to rule the day. And remember what I told you, day simply means light. You cannot just use the word day like it means nothing. No, the word day means light. Man, let me not even use the word day. The greater light to rule the light. How about that? The greater light to rule the light. So when it says the word rule, think about it as a king and his kingdom, right? So you got the kingdom, and then you have a king. Now, is the king the kingdom? No, the king isn't the kingdom. They're two separate entities. But nevertheless, the king rules over the kingdom. Even though it's a kingdom, we know that this king is the great ruler of this kingdom. And I'm just trying to make a point. So we got the day. What I'm trying to say is the Lord placed the sun inside of the day. So you already had this day or this daylight. The Lord just simply took the sun that had an even greater essence of the light than this day, and he placed it in the day to help give light upon the earth, if that makes sense. Even with the night, you got the darkness, okay, which is called night. You got the darkness, and the Lord took the moon and he put it inside of the night. Does that make sense? He put it inside of the night. Just like a king, he put it in there, and the Lord told these lights, the sun, you are going to rule over the day. So the sun comes inside of the day and he rules it. Yeah, I know it's already light here, but I'm the great light. I'm the biggest light you can see. And then with the night, I rule the night. That's what the moon says. I rule the night. Darkness everywhere, but I rule this thing. That's why it uses the word rule. The Lord is trying to paint a picture here. The day and the sun, the night and the moon, those are two separate entities, guys. Two separate entities. And I don't think I can explain it any better way than that. But it says, and let them be for signs, seasons, and days and years. So even though the day and night cycle happened without the aid of the sun, moon, and the stars, the reason why the sun, moon, and the stars were created was for man. So that man knew when the day began, when the day ended, when seasons would start, when seasons would end. So that way they could have a clock. That was the reason why the sun, moon, and the stars were created. Because outside of that, the Lord didn't need any of that to create the day and night cycle. He already had that covered back in day one. But he needed something for man to have time. So what God created basically was time. That's what we got here, time. The invention of time, because he knew man would need something to go off of. All right. So that's the best way I could put it. But guys, I have to move on. It's just too much stuff. Again, if you guys ask me to create, maybe another video touching up on the details of these things, I'll do it. But I have to move on, guys, for the sake of time. So Genesis chapter 1 and verse 17, and it says, and God set them in the firmament. So they're under the firmament inside of the earth. God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. In 18 it says, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And again, another precept for that is that Psalm 74 and 16 that we looked at, clearly telling you even more that those are the light and the sun, the moon and stars, and those are two separate entities from one another. Verse 19, and it says, "And the evening and the morning were the fourth day." So the fourth day is over. Now we're going to go to the fifth day. Verse 20, and it says, "And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." And it says, "And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good." All right, verse 22. "And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth." And we see where the Lord gave that commandment again the second time. Let's go ahead real quick and go to Genesis chapter 8 and verse 17. Genesis chapter 8 and verse 17. Now, this is after Noah's flood, after utter destruction. Verse 15, I'm going to skip up there, and it says, "And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed or multiply abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So we see that the Lord, after he reset everything, he gave that commandment a second time. Okay, and I just wanted you guys to see that comparison. Right, so back to Genesis, and I'm going to read verse 23, and it says, "And the evening and the morning were the fifth day." All right, so that ended the fifth day. Now, let's continue reading. Verse 24, and it says, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so." So God spoke it, and it was. It manifested itself. "And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good." So God didn't make no mistakes when he was creating everything. Everything was made perfect, just how he wanted it to. Verse 26. Now this right here get pretty good. I like this. "And God said, Let us make man in our image." Now remember, it says in John 1 verses 1 through 3 that this God who created all things, which was Jesus, remember it said in the beginning, this beginning that we're reading right here, it says he was with God the Father. So when he says, "Let us make man in our image," you know he's talking to the Father. It says, "And after our likeness." Now what does that mean? We got a head, don't it? We got shoulders, we got arms, elbows, legs, feet, knees, butt, back. That lets you know that God the Father and God the Son, they got those things too, because we were made in their image. And it says, "And let them have dominion." Now that's very important. "And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Now, that's what differentiates man and beast and whale and all of the other creation, is that he didn't tell them, let them have dominion. He only did that when it came to man. You know why? It's because he was in the process of creating more gods. That's why it says, let them have dominion. What does God do? God rules. God has dominion. Or should I say God with an S, God the Father and God the Son. They rule, they have dominion. And so that was what was going to be his plan with mankind. And in a way, it still is his plan. It's just we had to take the long route for obvious reasons. But that's what it means there when it says, let them have dominion. Because we're going to teach these men how to be God. And Satan, let me tell you something. Satan hate verse 26. Let them hate dominion. He hate that verse. He hated that. And later on, we're going to find out in some other chapters why Satan hated it. Verse 27. And it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Okay, verse 28. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Okay, there we go again, subdue it. And it says what? And have dominion over the fish of the sea. And whenever you hear the word subdue, that just simply means conquer it. So let me read that again. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and conquer it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moved upon the earth. So the Lord told this male and female to be fruitful and multiply. Now that's funny because he gave that same command post flood, after Noah's flood. So let's go read that real quick, just for the sake of continuity. Genesis chapter 9, and I'm going to read verses 1 and 7, and it says, and God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Because God, remember, he got done just killing just about everybody in the world with that flood, with those waters. Verse 7, and it says, and you be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. So I wanted to just read that, guys, for the sake of continuity, because later in Genesis, we're going to come to that chapter. And I want you guys to see that that was the second time that the Lord had gave that commandment. Verse 30. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. Now, before Noah's flood, the only thing we ate was fruits and vegetables, essentially. That's essentially what we ate. But post-flood, we were allowed to eat fruits, vegetables, and the Lord also put meat on the table. And I had to say that again just for the sake of continuity. Verse 31, this is the last verse of this chapter. And I'm getting kind of sad. I like Genesis 1, favorite chapter. But everything got to come to an end, right? Verse 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. So everything that the Lord created in his mind, it was perfect. Nothing wrong with it. It was absolutely perfect. That's why it said very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And so that was the end of day 6. So I'm pretty sure you guys may have a lot of questions, but I will try to answer them the best that I can in a video. But I hope you guys enjoyed chapter 1. Again, I couldn't really get to all of the details just for the sake of time, because if I tried to do everything, this video would literally be 4 to 5 hours. So I tried to just stick with my base scriptures, stick with what I could read, and I just pretty much let it fly from there. But I hope you guys got some understanding with this chapter, and I will see you in chapter 2.